Unveiled. The most marvelous revelations of the 19th century concerning the origin of Christianity, or so-called. This is by Jonathan Manning Roberts. Henry Salt, an eminent English traveler. Good day, sir. There is no antiquarian, no linguist, no inscriptionist, but absolutely understands that all historical religions, either through relics, monuments, or scrolls, have their origin in the sun, and that all the ancients, although their religions may be diversified, started on that central pivot, the sun, and after a most laborious effort to come here today, and through an uneducated man to state what I know, I find it most difficult, as you mortals cannot, and will know, until you become spirits, to carry out my purpose. We will commence with this, what has been said being only preliminary. Abrasax. See the Christian Satanism series, or just look up the word abraxas on the channel, and then abrasax, whatever. You will find that this word, wherever written or carved, is claimed to have been derived from the Hebrew ab, ben, and is said to have been designated what might be termed in Hebrew father, but in no case can the learned claim that this is true, for in reality it relates to the Persian god Mithras, and abraxas, or abrasax, means the amulet worn by the ancients, and in all cases it is traced to Mithras as typical of the sun. And I will refer to G. Belzoni's great discovery at Thebes, where bas-reliefs cover the sides of a tomb that no antiquarian can claim to understand in any other light than astronomical. Also in the works of Edward Ruppel and his discoveries in Egypt, Nubia, and Kordofan, it will be found that all the temple inscriptions and tombs are, in every case, either built according to the ancient symbolism of astrology, or they are so sculptured, outside and in, as to render their astrological relations apparent. The first thing that strikes the attention of an antiquarian are certain symbols, always known as representing the sun, are the center of the solar system. You will also find in the writings of Belzoni concerning the oasis of Jupiter Ammon that the whole ancient system is a combination of the sun with the first sign of the zodiac, or with what Aries, the ram or lamb, the same kind of bas-reliefs, only of a ruder character, are found at the bases of the temples of India, among the principal of which are the caves of Ellora and Elephanta, and that this principle is just as much observed today in these ancient countries, I am prepared to prove by the temples of Shumadu near Pagu in Burma, called in English the Golden Supreme. Also by the temple near Rangoon of the Shoe Dragon, or Golden Dagon. These temples are built upon the exact astronomical principles, Draco being 72 stars, and its typical way of drawing it. These temples are built upon the exact astronomical principles. The last modern Dagon throws a full light upon the nature of the temple of the Philistines. well, so-called Philistines, they didn't call themselves this, spoke of in the Hebrew text, where Dagon fell down before the ark. No learned commentator can deny the identity of the modern Dagon with the ancient one. And now, for my final effort, through this man, to show where, from inscriptions and ruins still existing, I think it will be found that the true civilization began. And to do this, I shall have to go back before real history begins, to show that man, having left his rude home upon the Asiatic plains beyond the Himalayas, made his descent into the fertile plains of India, with all his rude barbarian health, not yet enervated by luxury, there finding the soil to yield him the necessities of life without labor. Well, obviously some labor, and everything that goes to make up material happiness, he naturally became mentally developed. And in those regions, I think between 12,000 and 1,500 years ago, was invented and introduced what is termed by the learned the Sanskrit tongue, the language of the real sun worship, and which has governed every system of religion since. If there is any religion without the symbol of the sun in Aries, or in the first sign of the zodiac, I have failed to discover it. Well, simply, there's a lot of them, and it's Pisces is more the modern way, and before that, before Aries, it was Taurus, and Leo, there's evidence of civilization in Persia starting in Leo, so for a dead guy that can discover even more than in life, he seems to have failed in his discoveries in life, doesn't he? All kinds of life that have taken on form have been worshipped, simply as types or waymarks to the great material god, the sun. In writing, they almost always, or nearly as possible, wrote from east to west. It is a well-known fact that all the early Christians worshipped or manifested their adoration by bowing towards the east, the counterpart of pagan sun worship. And in Palmyra and Thebes, the principal object worshipped by the forerunners of Christianity was Ares the ram or lamb, and the Therahuta also worshipped the same symbol. You will find this proven in Sir William James's Asiatic Researches, which is probably where the medium got the information, right? I am sorry, as a spirit, that I allowed Christianity to blind my eyes to the truth. As I did so, I owe it to my mortal brethren here on earth to set them right. If this succeeds in doing what I intend it shall, and I have no doubt it will, if properly followed up, I will have done my part towards retrieving my mistake. And now I have this to say to you, that whilst I leave you to withstand the conclusion of error, I, as a spirit, will always be with you in what I have here uttered. Yours, for the public good, Henry Salt. Refer to the Biographie Universelle for account of Henry Salt. Such a man was Henry Salt, whose spirit, after a half-century, returns to inform the world as to certain points of ancient history which his Christian prejudices invented him from acknowledging when in the mortal form. Reader, think of what the world has been deprived of through the Christian training of this truly learned and accomplished antiquarian. If Henry Salt had, in 1809, when the result of his investigations into the antiquities of Hindostan, Abyssinia, and Egypt were first published, then asserted what he now positively asserts, to wit, that all religions had their origin in the sun, from which they all started as from one pivotal point, it would not be necessary for me to draw down upon myself the opposition and enmity of religious bigots, in laying bare the truth in relation to those time-honored delusions called Christian truths. Well, opposing there's a difference between bigotry and I don't like what you're saying because I have a different opinion. That's, that he should have found it most difficult to use the medium as well as he did. I can well understand, although he thinks that cannot be possible. I have not a doubt of the correctness of his interpretation of abraxas or abrasax, which has been so clearly misunderstood. It is undoubtedly a Persian and not a Grecan symbol, as it has been erroneously supposed, and no doubt had relation to the sun in its annual revolution. Yalda Ba'ath would be how they interpret such a character as abrasax as being in the way that some think of it as sort of a demiurge, but let's realize that we can use the term beyond that. Because 365 is actually a number you can tie to abraxas, abrasax, doesn't matter how you spell it with those letters. Ablanathan Alba, Ablanathan Alba, so that would be the Greek looking, which is refers to the ancient Egyptian, and I've pointed this out in the Goetia series, but for the account of Wilhelm Reppel and Belzoni, we refer to Thomas's Dictionary of Biography. The spirit of salt no doubt recalls what he was perfectly familiar with in his early life when he speaks of the astrological discoveries of Belzoni and Ruppel. He must have been personally acquainted with both, for they no doubt concurred in opinions as to the astro-theological origin and character of Christianity. No well-informed antiquarian will question the assertion of this spirit that the temples in India and Egypt corresponded as to their respective symbols and the significance of them, that the Burman Dagon of modern times is identical with the so-called fish god of the Palestinians, while the Philistines, again, Tun meaning the female Satan, Palosh meaning wallowers, and which is a twist on something else. They were never called the wallowers of the female Satan by themselves, but this is what the Jews called them, and the Romans said, "We're going to call your land Palestine." No, don't call it Palestine. And in the 1930s, some Jews wanted some Zionist Jews who were betraying the current government. They wanted to try to put this title Palestine upon the place so they could pass it on to someone else. They represented alike the sun and the sign of the fishes, and because of that fact, the former is called the golden Dagon, everything being considered golden that expressed the solar light. But here we have the spirit of one of the most learned men of the beginning of the present century, in the light of his mortal and spiritual knowledge, asserting that the first written language was the Sanskrit, and that it had its origin between 12,000 and 15,000 years ago in the elevated plains of southern and central Asia, among the people themselves fresh from a barbaric state. And what is most significant of all, that language was invented to express the worship of the sun by that rude and early people. Now, that all religion, all spiritual paths are basically sun worship positive? Yeah. Sun worship? No. Although there were sun worshiping groups, you do have people prostrating the sun and saying, "Oh, glorious one who gives us yellow light," and all that sort of thing. But yeah, yoga's not sun worship. It is sun worship. Well, that one type of yoga, that one particular practice, but would it be better to worship what created the sun, right? And as far as the sun and Pisces, the heliacal rising of the two fish, when that happened, start of Judaism, as a historical entity are what? Okay, the second book of Maccabees, we give it to, let's take what was going on at that time in the BC area to the second book of Maccabees and say, well, we can probably say about 200 BCE, 180 BCE, and then around 60 you have the other fish going up. So Judaism and Christianity presaged by the symbolism in the sky, and the reference that Moses got about that thing. But even at the early period, the sun in the sign of Aries was the leading feature of the religion of the primitive Aryan people. Oh, no. 15,000 years ago, it was absolutely not Aries. It would have been, would it have been Leo? How long ago? No, Leo was much earlier than that. Maybe even Dagon would have, Draco would have been that time of year. What are those? It was a while ago. I don't remember how exactly they just 12,000 years ago. So Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. Scorpio, was it the age of Scorpio that we're looking at? It was on the account of the fact of the sun's apparent movement from east to west as the spirit assault that the Asiatic peoples usually wrote from right to left instead of from left to right as we do. It is equally certain that the Essenes, who were the primitive Christians, worshipped the sun. Again, I don't see any evidence that they worshipped the sun, and also bowed or knelt towards the east in adoration of the sun. Actually, it says that Abraham turned his back on the sun and faced north, and he turned his back on the sun and faced west. So, misunderstandings. It is equally certain that the principal object of worship by the Palmyrans and Thebuns were the people from whom the Christians derived their religion in the great part was the sun and the sign of the Lamb, and frankly confesses that he allowed himself to be blinded by Christianity, and it comes to us, as he says, to make amends so far as he may make for error by disclosing what he could of truth. Reader, could you know for the labor of testing the truth of these communications, you would regard them as more precious than gold, as sources of the most reliable knowledge as to the affairs of the past. Okay, Henry Salt, that part's done with, but look at, okay, we have the cardinal sign and the fixed sign, which is a weird way to think of it. It's not a literal way to think of it, because you do have the precession every 72 years. You have a degree shift. But right now we say Aries is cardinal Earth. So the lion is turned green. So the lion shall lay down with the lamb means the development of the lamb has made its way to the lion. Much in the way of Pisces from Scorpio, but Scorpio with Cancer. So the development from Cancer to, the crab, to the eagle, snake, scorpion, and then you'd have the fish. And I mentioned Taurus. So Taurus would be the, would be the cardinal, and would be the fix, and the cardinal would be the goat, and the virgin would be the mutable. And we've left out one, so let's say the rest of the zodiac here, we've had the Aquarius. So the cardinal for Aquarius would be Libra. And the scales. So the water bearer, its mutable factor would be the voluptuous woman in the sky, also known as the brothers. And in the tarot, we have the Lover's card, which also relates to brotherhood. hopefully not mixing those two much, you. But, well, not at all. But, we see that the themes that have been put upon the zodiac, which has been redrawn and from previous eras, these various things come up. But to work with the symbolism of the sun and the things that we compare, the sun, we see it in this constellation this time of year, and this constellation this time of year. It doesn't mean we're worshiping the sun or the moon or the stars or anything else. We don't have to do this. And I think early on humanity realized the cycles of nature without worshiping the cycles of nature and the particular suns and stars and whatnot. But I do admit that it is clear that such things have happened, do happen, and are bound to probably keep happening pretty much till humanity's at an end with. But we need to look beyond the fallacies that have been put on symbolism and towards the truth.